Okay, everyone, welcome to our the first episode of our new podcast, Media Diet. This is where we're going to be talking about movies. We're going to be talking about TV shows, video games, literature, probably not, in any kind of media that we consume over the past week, and we're going to give our personal takes on it as filmmakers, as creatives. My name is Mike. This is Tim, and today we're going to be talking about a very timely, huge pop culture icon, The Batman. It's a movie that we've both seen recently. It's in the news quite a bit now. I've got a little script here. Let me go over. Since 1966's Batman the Movie, we've seen the Caped Crusader on screen in 9 solo live-action movies, some animated features, and a few side stories in the wildly jumbled DC universe. Now he's back in Matt Reeves' The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Paul Dano, Colin Farrell, Jeffrey Wright, and John Turturro. Batman ventures into Gotham City's underworld when a sadistic killer leaves behind a trail of cryptic clues as the evidence begins to lead closer to home and the scale of the perpetrator's plans become clear. He must forge new relationships, unmask the culprit, and bring justice to the abuse of power and corruption that has long plagued Gotham City. That was from Wikipedia. So
fantastic. It was great.
So thanks for listening, and this has been Media Diet. So let's go over what were your initial thoughts when you first walked out of The Batman?
Vengeance.
It took me a second, but I was talking with my wife about it, and she was more apprehensive about it. She's very much, pro Christopher Nolan about the whole thing. After, talking with her for a bit, like right as soon as we left the theater, and I still kind of maintain this. I think that was the best Batman movie that I've seen, just overall. It was dark, it was moody, and that's essentially the way that I like to experience Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I was talking with Alan about it, he had a good point saying that it was like you were playing the video games, the Arkham Asylum video games. So like it was very much just in line with that sort of vibe, and I loved it.
Yeah, I saw somebody on YouTube made an edit of that scene where he beats the piss out of the guy in the makeup, and they put like the video game overlays on top of it. That was pretty funny. Yeah, I wasn't sure how I felt about it when I left. I knew that like I really, really liked this. Like I was like, wow, that really affected me, and man, it was beautiful, and the direction was so good, and the performances were good. It looked so good, but something about it, I couldn't really put my finger on it. But something about it was just keeping me from like loving it. But I think it stayed with me longer than a lot of movies stay with me. Like I was thinking about it and talking about it like for the next week or two. I mean, it's been 2 or 3 weeks since I've seen it, and we're still talking about it. So like clearly has left an impression. But I think what made me not love it was because the hype for this for me was so built up that I was like, it has to be perfect. I mean, it's going to be perfect.
That was going to be a question I had because, I've only seen like a few trailers here and there, and they were so spread out.
Sure.
That I wouldn't say like there was a bunch of hype around mine, but Matt Reeves, I absolutely love that director, and he made me like Planet of the Apes, which I didn't really like any of the original stuff, or obviously the Mark Wahlberg one too. I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. But it was just one of those things where it's like, if he can make me like Planet of the Apes and the direction that he went with that, I had kind of just fully expected me to love this movie.
And again, I think that was it was a self-imposed hype machine. Like I watched 1 or 2 trailers and I was like, I don't need any more. You got me. I'm hooked. But it was that same thing. Like I love Matt Reeves, and this looks so good, and I want it to be perfect, and I expected it to be perfect. And no movie is perfect, right?
No.
So there were some things about it that didn't like fully work for me, and so I left thinking like, I don't know, I guess it could have been better, but like it was fantastic. Like I built it up in my own head, and that kind of made me feel lesser about it, even though I don't think it deserved it. What were some things that really worked for you or didn't work for you?
The visual style. You sent me that podcast where they were kind of just talking about like inspiration and what kind of drew them towards that style. And whenever they rented those lenses and stuff like that, and you find out that the lenses were kind of broken, but it was creating like these vignetting effects and stuff like that in the shots. I thought that was great, and it seemed all intentional too. So it was just like, oh my god, it's so fantastic. But I love how dark it is. I'm always more in line with people who'd like to go like super dark, super moody, and just kind of get, I guess, real emo with it.
Sure.
I love those movies. And like with a lot of the DC stuff that's come out in the past, like, it's not a popular opinion, but the way Zack Snyder was doing his stuff, I like the darker stories. So that was
Well, so what was your like? I think a lot of people struggle with this. Like, should Batman be this dark, or should Batman be, a little bit lighter and a little bit more fun, because its origins were a little bit lighter, and obviously the Adam West Batman was very light, and then the Joel Schumacher Batman Forever, Batman and Robin movies were super light and campy. Like, what was your for me, like, my Batman is Batman the Animated Series and Tim Burton's Batman.
What are you? I'm Batman.
Because that was when I was a kid. That was what I was watching, Saturday morning cartoons and Batman '89. And so, like, I like that dark gothic Batman. I read some graphic novels, and I think there's a big difference between the graphic novels and the comics, because graphic novels are all pretty dark.
Yeah, they're pretty dark, and I mean, some of the comics are too. So I guess that really all depends on like which Batman you grew up with.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge comic reader, so before I even saw the animated series or even the Adam West stuff, I was reading the comics first. And so it's always been kind of dark and very like mysterious and stuff like that. So maybe, that's why I align with it, and it just being dark. So that's what I started off with first. So that's kind of always what I expect Batman to be.
Sure. And so was there anything, so visual style, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like, I thought it looked beautiful. I know that one of our coworkers, Steven, kind of disagrees with us. He thought it was distracting how dirty those lenses were.
Well, he's wrong. So.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but yours is wrong. I'm sorry, Steven.
Yeah, super wrong.
Yeah, no, it added a lot of texture to me. I think it helped make that world feel grosser and grimy and greasy and flawed, and I think it added to the story for me.
Yeah, I think it's always been with something with all the other Batman movies has always been, it's like it looked like, Christopher Nolan shot Chicago. It seemed more like Chicago rather than Gotham. Yeah. I feel like with this one, it seemed like Gotham, not like a spot where I can be like, oh, that was definitely in Chicago. I've seen that area like at some point in time. So I felt like it really, just brought that grittiness, that griminess of Gotham that you always kind of like read about, or, it's kind of like mentioned and stuff like that. But I thought it really came alive. One thing that I did like too was just like the amount of just orange lighting that was in there. It's like doing just everything was just so orange. A lot of the shots were backlit. It was gorgeous to me.
Yeah, I mean, they leaned really heavily into that sodium vapor look, it is evocative of an old, dirty city, right? Like, I mean, even LA now. I remember Collateral, right, with Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise, and I remember they shot a lot of that with just the sodium vapor bulbs that were out in LA, and but since then, a lot of LA has transferred to new, cooler lighting. It's more energy efficient, or it's cheaper, or whatever. So, like, cities are modernizing by getting rid of bulbs like that and lighting like that. And so, since Gotham hasn't done that, it's another story layer. And again, that's from a story standpoint, but also just from a pure visual standpoint, it just looks so good.
Yeah, well, with the amount of crime that happens in Gotham, I don't think they can afford, to do any nice lighting.
Well, and I heard a really interesting question. I'd like to get your take on this. People are saying, okay, so Batman is a response to the crime in Gotham, or is the crime in Gotham a response to Batman, right? Is the Riddler and the Joker and the Penguin, are they popping up more because there's a costume freak who wants to take them down, or is Batman just lucky that all the freaks live in one city?
Oh no, it's 100% like Batman brings that attention to Gotham. That's been a storyline that's kind of like hit in a few different like novels and stuff like that, to where it's essentially, they're kind of like drawn to him, so they see him like doing this thing, and a lot of these villains feel like they haven't like met their match yet, and so whenever they see or hear about Batman, they're like, oh, this guy's like on the opposite side, but it kind of speaks to me. I need that sort of that rivalry and stuff like that.
Seek therapy, villains of Gotham. So was there anything about the film that didn't work for you, or that you thought, from a filmmaking standpoint, they could have, if they had done this, it would have worked a little bit better?
Yeah, the endings, the 10 endings
Sure.
that happened.
Yeah.
I wish it would have just kind of stopped at
Mhm.
one point. There was the moment where I don't know what he ended up like injecting himself with,
Sure.
whether that be like the whole like Titan virus thing or whatever. But anyways, I felt like there was like 5 different endings,
Mhm.
and it kind of like did the Return of the King did the same thing. And there was a moment in Return of the King where I stood up and I started walking, and then it just started
Start
going
clapping,
again.
and then, oh, no, it's not over yet.
And so I was fully expecting it to be done at one point,
Mhm.
and I was just like, well, also, that was a great movie, and then it just
Yeah.
kept going.
Yeah.
So,
No, I completely agree. And I think that's another reason why, not again, I haven't said this yet at all. Hopefully you guys have watched this movie. We're not going to try to spoil anything by revealing too many things yet. We might do a spoiler section here, but, just be forewarned that spoilers may happen. But I totally agree. For me, the third act, I didn't mind the third act. A lot of people are like, third act feels like it's from a different movie. I get that. I don't mind Batman punching goons, and like the third act was Batman punching goons.
Yeah,
and so like
huge
I'm
fan
okay
of
with that. I thought it looked great. I thought the fight choreography was good. But I do agree that it sort of felt like the film did not, or the third act did not build to like one crescendo and then end. It was like something happened in building, and then it slows down, and then something happens and builds, and then slows down. And it happened like 5 times, and it happened at the end. And so that's the last thing I'm remembering as I'm walking out of theater, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. That, I think for me, that's part of what I say didn't work for me, is that I think the pacing of the third act was a little weird.
Yeah, and I had to look past that too,
Mhm.
because usually it's like whatever happens at the end is kind of like that lasting effect
Yeah.
when you walk out. But the more and more that I looked back on it, I thought his costume was great. I thought the fact that he was very rarely actually Bruce Wayne, and we didn't have to watch his parents die again. I thought that was a great move, and I very much appreciate just, and they thought the audience already knows what happens.
Mhm.
Everyone's already seen this already. Let's just like skip past it and just move on to just kind of like in the middle of his life or something.
Although
like
I
that.
do think it's a law now that every week there has to be a new Batman or Joker movie. So we probably will get that origin again soon.
Well, I hope not.
Yeah. Give us some time. Yeah. So, okay. So, is there anything in the spoiler world that you want to talk about? A clip has been revealed online over the past couple days. That is, it's online, so it's everywhere.
I was
But
going
it
to say,
is
it's not so much a spoiler anymore, I guess, right? So with the whole Joker thing, I honestly didn't even know if that was Joker at the end until the laugh. Like Marilyn and I were kind of whispering to each other, and I thought it was Two-Face.
Oh, sure.
Like just kind of getting like that side
Well, his
profile.
face is all screwed up.
Yeah, so like I thought it was Two-Face, and I was just like, okay, like this would be cool
Right.
maybe if they dive in like a little bit deeper, or not really go into the whole backstory of Two-Face, but kind of give him more of an arc than what was given in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, it was pretty quick in The Dark Knight. Yeah. So I think in that, this is another thing that a lot of people online had a problem with, is that they felt like this Joker scene was kind of shoehorned in there to do this reveal for the next movie, if that's what it's going to be. Obviously, The Dark Knight did that, or Batman Begins did that. I think that I kind of agree that the scene that's in the movie does feel a little tacked on. But from what I understand, they had shot this other scene with the Batman and the Joker talking in Arkham, and so it does feel a little bit more intentional, like Matt Reeves actually planned to put him in there all along. And hey, look, it's a 3-hour movie, and this additional 5 to 7 minute scene, or however long it is with the Joker, didn't really need to be in there. But I do feel like if it had been in there, people would have not been as annoyed or felt like, oh God, they're doing this again, because it was less of a tease of ooh, look, this character's here, and more character hey, these people have met before. It's their 1-year anniversary, and this is another established part of the universe.
Yeah, hopefully. I honestly would like to see different villains.
Sure.
It was really cool, showing the Joker, and I thought, I forget the guy's name, but
Barry, I'm gonna butcher this, but I think it's Barry Keoghan.
Okay.
He's Welsh.
I think that,
sorry.
he did well.
Yeah.
I think that, he kind of, as much as anyone can do, because like we set the bar with Heath Ledger now.
And there's been 100 performances of it now.
Yeah.
It used to be a sacred thing. It was like Jack Nicholson and Cesar Romero. That was it. And now it's like everybody's fucking done it.
And so I think it was one of those things where it's like, I kind of got, the creepy vibes from it. The makeup was really well done, and probably the furthest that I've ever seen it go in the more like, I guess, grotesque direction.
Yeah. It was gross.
Yeah. And so like I thought that was cool, but like I couldn't help but think, I would much rather see more like grounded villains, I guess. So it's like seeing more of like Penguin and stuff like that. And I know that he's getting a show and potentially
HBO
could be in the
series,
but I would like to see maybe like Black Mask or something like that. And I know they did that in Birds of Prey, but I hated that movie.
And,
so
and
I would
also
like to see
none of this counts because nothing's connected. That's, I think, my biggest complaint with DC versus Marvel. I like movies, so I don't mind. I'm not inherently just like, oh, DC sucks. Like I'll go see those movies, but just the hey, we did a Joker movie that's connected to nothing. Now we've done a Batman movie that's connected to nothing that has the Joker in it, and then we have Zack Snyder as a DC universe that's connected to nothing now. So it's such a mess that like, and I get fatigue from that mess, but I also get fatigue from like my friends and family who are not as involved in this world as I am, who are like, wait, I thought Joaquin Phoenix was the Joker, and who's this guy? And it's like I have to explain it to them, and
you kind of just have to keep your keep them separate and just enjoy them for what they are.
Yeah.
But back to the villain things, I don't know if this is the right thing, but they have like a cult. I think it's called like Order of the Owls.
Court of Owls.
Court of Owls. Yeah. So it's like I would love to see them in the movie, and I think that would fit in very well with kind of the vibe that we got. So like seeing stuff like that and kind of diving into new territory to where Batman can still feel fresh for all viewers that have been watching it for years, or new people that are coming in. So it's like I would like to see them go more in that direction.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we've seen all these villains before, so let's try to do something new. So
most likely, though, I feel that there's going to be a moment where Joker's going to get everyone out of Arkham, and then it's just going to be some bullshit.
Yeah.
But
well, and that's not. The No Man's Land, right? Isn't that a famous Batman run where, I mean, that seems like that's where this is headed, right? Because it was, I don't know if it was flooding that caused it, but basically like Gotham is totally screwed because the Riddler blew up some harbor or something like that, and now it's just like a lawless, free for all for criminals. So that does track if they get all released in Batman.
It kind of makes for a really awesome movie if it were to pick up like right after that happens.
Batman's like, can I just have one day, guys? One day. All right. So any final thoughts? Any final takeaways from the Batman 2022?
No, I think it was the best Batman movie that I've seen just overall. That had a lot of people like The Dark Knight and stuff like that, but I feel like this one just really gave that, detective, like world's greatest detective vibes. And so I definitely liked that experience more.
Yeah, I think for me it's probably the best Batman movie, but they think it's because I'm classifying The Dark Knight as like a crime drama that Batman happens to be in. So like I think The Dark Knight is probably a better movie. It's paced better. The story really moves. The characters are great, but like to me, Batman is like secondary to that. To me, enjoying that movie, right? It could have been any crime fighter, or even just like any guy who could have been just a regular detective instead of a caped,
Right. And sometimes Christian Bale's voice kind of takes me out of it too. Yeah. And so like I know like Robert Pattinson did like a little bit more of a dialed back version of that,
to where just whispered everything.
Yeah, and that was much better than just kind of like grunting at everything. So I definitely enjoyed that.
And I gotta give props where props are due. My man Ben Affleck, I thought you were a fantastic Batman, and I thought you really got short shrift for being in some not great Batman movies.
Yeah, I would have liked to actually seen him go on longer, and that's like once again unpopular opinion. Like I wanted to see Zack Snyder get his full vision, and I thought as bad as the Batman versus Superman movie was, after I saw the extended version.
The extended version slaps, man.
Right. I saw like where it was going, and I was just like, why didn't we keep all this context in the theatrical version? So it, I still hope that somewhere someday that we'll be
Yeah.
able to see kind of like the full extent, or at least maybe, Snyder will release just kind of like his plan.
Sure, yeah.
Maybe if there's like some scripts written or something like that to where I can read them.
Or give him an HBO series to do
Yeah.
just like the Nightmare series, right?
Yeah, that
Like,
would have been
I would
great.
watch that.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Ben Affleck was great. And hopefully we see that at some point.
Yeah, I think he's done. I would have also been really interested to see his Batman movie because before Matt Reeves came on board, it was supposed to be
right.
The Batman starring Ben Affleck, written and directed by Ben Affleck, and he was just like, "Nah, I'm done with this."
Yeah, and I read some interview where Affleck and Reeves actually met up, and they were considering the idea, I think, of working together. But I think they're just both of their ideas didn't work. Matt Reeves had said something along the lines that Ben Affleck was going for way more of like actiony and just like kind of like in your face, kind of how Zack Snyder does like all of his action and stuff like that. Which I will say, like the best Batman fight scene is still from
the
Batman
warehouse,
versus-
the warehouse
yeah,
fight scene. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
amazing. So I know that they had kind of talked, and then it just wasn't really happening. But
Well, we can dream. The last few things I just want to, before we wrap up Batman, is just want to call out a few things. For anyone who does not know, we talked about, obviously, the director is Matt Reeves, who did Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes, both fantastic Planet of the Apes movies. He also did a horror remake called Let Me In, which is a vampire story. Spoiler alert. Also very good. And that one was also shot by cinematographer Greg Fraser. And he did the first Cloverfield, which I think is the best Cloverfield.
Did he really?
Yeah. And so very impressive resume. As I mentioned, Greg Fraser, he's done a couple episodes of Mandalorian. He shot Rogue One, and he shot Dune also in 2022.
All gorgeous stuff.
Very
yeah.
impressive resumes all around. And one thing that I think has been a little divisive is the score by Michael Giacchino. How did you feel about it? Because I have friends that are like, nah, it wasn't for me.
I honestly didn't pay that
Yeah.
much attention to it. So maybe it was just it was fine. Like I was very much just deep into the story and the mystery of it all.
Well, I think a lot of things in film are meant to be invisible art forms, right? So the score shouldn't be taking you out of it. Things shouldn't.
So maybe it did great.
So
maybe
that's a good
maybe it was
sign.
awesome.
Yeah.
One thing that I guess my last note on it that I didn't mention earlier was that Batman is hella smart in this movie.
Yeah.
Like almost every single time there was a riddle asked him, he answered it in 2 seconds, and it's just well, okay,
Yeah.
What if I wanted to kind of think about it for a second. Granted, the movie needs
Right.
to move on and stuff like that, but there was just moments where I'm just how in the fuck did you get to this?
Right.
answer?
And what is that balance, right? Because
Yeah.
we talked about that, I would love to have a second to think about it. Maybe I could get it, but then I think the risk is if you get it before Batman, does it make Batman seem not as smart to you? And he is supposed to be the world's greatest detective.
True.
Who knows? I'm sure they played around with this.
Well, and they gave everyone the chance, I guess, at the end with the whole website that you go to. Like if you stayed
Sure.
after
Yeah.
the credits and stuff like that, they give you a website to go to and answer some riddles and stuff like that. Which I didn't answer them quick. It took.
They're
a while.
hard.
Yeah,
I
it took
agree.
a while.
Cool. Well, so that's our take on the Batman. Are there any other things? Is there any other media that you've consumed as a part of your diet over the past week that you want to talk about?
I have been playing a video game called Halo Infinite. I haven't really been able to play too much, but I think I'm finally getting close to the end. So, been playing that, and then I've been catching up on Vikings. I don't know if you've watched.
I've not checked out. Is that Apple?
Oh no, it was
Vikings.
on History,
Okay.
and so it's not the new season that's on Netflix
Okay.
now. It's kind of the original one that was on History. I believe it's on Hulu now, but I started watching it whenever it first came out, and then kind of fell off for a little bit, and ended up seeing some sort of thing on YouTube, and I was like, oh man, maybe I should go back and kind of pick that up. But Vikings has been very very interesting. The production level for a show that's on the History Channel, it's way up.
It looks great. Yeah, I just never. I mean, there's so many freaking things that everyone's like, "Oh, have you watched this? Have you watched this?" I'm getting to it.
Yeah,
on my list.
Yeah, I have a massive list
Yeah.
of things, and I feel like almost every day, coworkers telling me something, about a new show that I haven't looked at, and it just gets added onto the
Yep.
list. So it's, I have probably about another 2 years worth of shows.
So Halo, is this a solo campaign or is it a multiplayer thing that you're?
It is a solo campaign, but I guess a lot of people would know it more for the multiplayer.
Yeah.
But for me, it's always been campaign first. But with this time around, every time that I start playing the campaign, I think it's like after like an hour or something of playing campaign, it's like, no, I just want to go in the multiplayer and just absolutely wreck shit.
That's the only way I know it is that my college roommate used to play, and he lived his bedroom was above mine, and I'd wake up on Saturday to him just like screaming at kids.
Yeah, I mean,
over his headset.
There are still little kids on there that like to troll, and like for some reason
That gets me angry.
like probably gets me the most angry that I've been in a very long time is whenever I have some child telling me how bad I am at a game. So I still get
Kids are
those
cool, man.
sort of I still get those emotions. But still, it's fun.
Yeah, no, I think I never did it because I never keep up with consoles, but I get it. The playing with real people is infinitely more fun than bots.
Yeah, and I have a few friends that I play with. My brother and one of my close friends. Him and I kind of have this rivalry. His name on Xbox is better than Tim.
Oh, nice.
And so
Throwing down
almost
the gauntlet.
every single time that we play, like even though like we're playing on the same team, it's more of like even if I lose a game, if I do better than him, then I can give him shit about it.
Yeah.
So like that's what makes
It's
it fun.
that's what makes the game. That's what makes any game fun is beating people and then making them feel bad about it.
That's right.
Yep.
Yes.
As for my media diet, I have been playing a lot of Oculus Quest 2. I downloaded a game called Pistol Whip, which we played a little bit in the office today. It is someone described it as like Beat Saber plus John Wick. So like you have your handle is a little gun, and I'm a nonviolent person here, but this game is fun as shit. And you have a little gun, and little guys like pop out and you shoot them, but there's music playing, and if you shoot them on the beat, you get more points. So man, it is so much fun. And when I'm done, I am just like dripping sweat. It's like buckets of sweat because I'm pretending I'm John Wick, so I'm like trying to be cool about it, and I'm like ducking things, and I look like an idiot.
Yeah, I saw Alan getting down with that. It looks like looks pretty
you'll
fun.
have to play it. It's very fun. And then the only other thing that I've been watching is I've been watching the Dropout, I believe is what it's called, on Hulu, I think. Yes, and it stars Amanda Seyfried and Naveen Andrews of Lost, and it's a fictional representation of a true story. That was a weird way to say
Is
that.
it
Of the
Theranos?
Theranos, of Elizabeth Holmes at Theranos, and I think it's pretty good. I think it's so strange because I'm watching Amanda Seyfried act like Elizabeth Holmes, and I'm like, boy, this is really bad acting. But then I'm like, no, that's how she talks. She had a really weird
I was about to say,
voice.
so she nailed that
weird
deep voice.
fake deep voice. Yeah, she does great at it. So she is doing really well, and I think sometimes the writing's a little on the nose because it's like it's trying to cover a span of 10 years in 7 or 8 episodes, however many episodes are in the show, and so it's like, guys, it's 2010. It's like, oh boy, you really had to squeeze that in there so I knew what year it was. But yeah, it's really it's very interesting to see behind the scenes of that, and just so wild to think that these two people scammed VCs out of $500 million.
Yeah, after I watched the documentary about that, I guess like during the time that it was like actually happening, I had no clue. So it's like whenever I watched the documentary, I was just like, how did this go on?
Yeah.
And how did she fool so many people? It's crazy.
It's so interesting because like it's a great idea to be able to one prick of the finger, one drop of blood, and you're tested for 200 different possible sicknesses or whatever. And so everyone is like, wow, that is a great idea. Well, sure, but it's impossible. And how did not more scientists say, well, this is not physically, like the laws of physics do not allow for this to happen. Instead, they were like, no, here's another $20 million. Like that blew my mind.
Yeah.
And it is just so crazy to see in the show how behind the scenes, how pretty much everyone knew it was impossible, but they just kept going and kept going and kept going. So, yeah, I think it's worth a watch. And I also read last night, I think Adam McKay is going to be doing a movie based on a book that someone wrote about this, and I think Jennifer Lawrence is going to be playing Elizabeth Holmes, so that should be interesting.
Oh, wow.
Adam McKay and Jennifer Lawrence just did Don't Look Up this past year, which I quite liked.
Thought it was a good one. I don't think it was the greatest thing he's ever done, but I did find some enjoyment from it for sure. I also like his Adam McKay's new show about Magic Johnson. I started watching that on
I haven't heard
HBO.
that.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
It's pretty great. But
All right, well, that's all we got, folks. That's our time. Thank you for listening. This has been episode 1 of Media Diet. You've got a lot of things that you can now add to your media diet: the Batman, Halo, the Dropout,
Vikings.
the Magic Johnson thing, Vikings,
Yeah.
etc., and so forth. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe and enjoy more podcasts as we go. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.